may say things up until a certain point where the government says you are not allowed to speak any further.
No. Oh, nice. Good discussion here. Although I'm not discussing with him. It's not the government who says you cannot speak. It's the law, and the law is that you cannot do hate speech. You cannot do things like happen. That's where it's coming from about neo-Nazism, the hate speech against black, against you Jews, against any other gay, any other um, people, kind of people. You cannot say those things because it violates their rights of being a human being. So it's not a valid argument. Oh, hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Joanne and I'm just a typical Dutchman who's wondering why is there such a difference between the US and Europe, or Netherlands in particular, and where is this coming from? And by looking at videos about the US, I'm gonna take a look and see where this difference is coming from. And if you want to make, together with me, this gap a bit closer, then like and subscribe, and we will make it a better world. And I'm gonna start today with a look at something that's not particularly American, not particularly something of the US. It's called Europe is not the land of the free. From Lotus Eaters Daily, no idea. It's from a month ago, so let's take it with a subscribe and a like and see why he thinks that Europe is not the land of the free.
So Europe is currently coping and seething over what Trump has been doing to them. And
As British, for instance, okay.
in a way, I can understand why they're upset about things. But the cope is very real, as this article from The Economist will tell us. Now, basically, I view The Economist as an essentially communist rag. They publish a lot of communist apologia for some reason. And they have arrived at this satirical article. The thing about Europe, it's the actual land of the free now.
It's from the communist, so it's from Russia out, something like, and then this is satire. So it's not really serious. Let's take a look.
The satire is not meant to say this is a ridiculous perspective. The satire is meant to say this is what we truly believe, and in fact, you should be taking notes, America. Europe's very real problems don't look so bad by comparison. Oh, do they not? Very interesting.
Okay, so it's still about America. Take notice. Okay, so it's about you guys.
And so they frame this as an American talking to Europeans. The thing about Europe, the sneerers say, is that it's overregulated. Yes, that is totally true. That is 100% totally true. And in fact, Ursula von der Leyen a couple of months ago actually came out and did an announcement to the European Union to explain how they're going to start reducing the amount of regulation to allow European businesses to be founded and to grow.
Yeah, okay, we have a lot of regulations inside the European Union to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and that there is free commerce at no tariffs, for example, and that we can walk and do and trade across borders, across nations, without too much hassle. But it's all about regulations. So
because they essentially just came out and admitted, yes, no, we, the administrative state, are the burden. It is the burden that is holding down Europe, and we need to get our knee off of the neck of the business side of Europe in order to be able to grow. And that's true. That's totally true. And so sarcastically saying, well, Europe's overregulated, say the sneerers, 100%. 100% true. I mean, just to be clear as well, I'm an Englishman. I supported Brexit. I don't consider myself to be a
he supported Brexit. Okay.
European. in the sense that someone from Europe would think of themselves. But from the American perspective, we all look like Europeans. I understand this. But the British are not Europeans in the sort of traditional sense, I would say.
Oh, I don't know how to take this. Nah, because he's a Brexit lover. I will not. Nah, no. I will not. No.
But anyway, the point being, this is said in jest, but it's completely true. Europe is absolutely overregulated, and it's also massively overtaxed as well to go with these regulations. But anyway, the next thing is that Europe is too indecisive, too slow to act. Every crisis requires multiple summits of the European Union's national leaders, often quibbling late into the night. Yes, this is a part of the overregulatory bureaucracy that
I'm taking a look at what he is reading at the point that he's saying it. So he was talking about that everything is overrated and that for every major decision there need to be a crisis. I don't see it. This thing is about Europe's indecisive and slow to act. There it is. Every crisis requires multiple summits of European national leaders, often quibbling late into the night. The boring processes of rule by consensus can slow the EU to crawl. It took 4 days and 4 nights of haggling to agree that the bloc latest 7-year budget in 2022 on the bloc's latest 7 years budget in 2022.
That, again, squats on top of Europe like a vampiric octopus with its tentacles in everything, sucking the life out of Europe. Europe can't do anything quickly because of the immense amount of overregulation.
Yeah, okay. That's why Britain left Great Britain because of Brexit. So now it's someone who was pro-Brexit going to tell why they went out of the European Union. And because there are a lot of English, British out there that are now facing the consequences of not can do business with Europe because of that they went out of it. Now they have to do extra paperwork that brings along extra costs. And now they have also charged with extra taxes. And yeah, then he is complaining more. But it's the fault of the Brexit that they have those extra red tape now.
An administration that everything requires. Yes, this is true. This is completely true. Why you would say this as some kind of defense of Europe sarcastically is very peculiar, frankly. But then they go, the thing about Europe is it freeloads on defense, not spending enough on its armed forces to single-handedly fend off threats. Another truth, right? Another
The thing about Europe is freeloads on defense, not spending enough on its armed forces to single-handedly fend off threats. Yeah, okay, I agree with it.
controversial.
But it has nothing to do with the subject. Europe is not the land of the free, and land of free is not free.
The truth that really put the shivers up the spines of the Europeans when JD Vance basically came over and told them this to their faces. And another thing that JD Vance came over and told them to their faces is that Europe lacks an absolutist attachment to free speech. See how judges in Romania and France derailed the careers of hard right politicians who have convinced themselves that their ideology, that there was their ideology rather than their law breaking that got them in trouble. That's very, very interesting because people seem to think that the reason that these people were targeted is because of their ideology. For example,
we don't have freedom of speech. JD Vance, I know. He came over here at the Munich Security Convention. But it's thing about it lacks absolute attachment to free speech because we don't have free speech. We have freedom of expression and not free speech.
Trouble that Le Pen got into which is funding a person in one office when they should have funded it another. I mean, it's the kind of petty bureaucratic mix up that only someone who is so deeply invested in the integrity of a bureaucracy would complain about. But not only that, I don't believe for a second that thousands of other European politicians don't also do the same thing. And yet they're not coming down on them hard, are they? No, it's because Le Pen is leading the polls. With Romania, the fact that they can just cancel an election entirely does seem to raise concerns that free speech is a bit of an issue in Europe. And the thing is, we know that you don't like free speech. Like, in no way, nowhere in Europe has free speech, right?
Yeah, we have freedom of expression in Europe, in Britain too. And freedom of expression means, for some of you, that we don't allow hate speech. And that's something that is allowed in the United States under the freedom of speech, the First Amendment. Yeah, somebody cannot stand this.
I mean this, nowhere. Everywhere in Europe has regulated speech because, of course, it is the bureaucratic continent. Has administered speech. You may say things up until a certain point where the government says you are not allowed to speak any further.
No. Oh, nice. Good discussion here. Although I'm not discussing with him. It's not the government who says you cannot speak. It's the law. And the law is that you cannot do hate speech. You cannot do things like happen. That's where it's coming from about neo-Nazism, the hate speech against black, against Jews, against any other gay, any other people, kind of people. You cannot say those things because it violates their rights of being a human being. So it's not a valid argument.
And these limits don't even, in many ways, aren't even very far away from what otherwise would be considered centrist and reasonable positions. Negative characterizations of groups are totally prohibited in Europe. And it's kind of crazy how so many thousands of people all across the continent end up going to jail for posting political opinions online.
That depends. I don't think that is the truth that he's saying there. I think that people going to jail because they are saying things and being a group like neo-Nazis that is not allowed. That has nothing to do with being political, because there are extreme right political parties who are free to promote their party, to promote their policies, to promote anything they want, and so that they can vote it into the government. And right here in the Netherlands, an extreme right party became the leading party in the Netherlands. Nobody got arrested. Nobody got put into jail. Only the guys who went too far, those were put into jail. Even in Germany, before the last elections, there was an extreme right party who's leading in Germany. So I'm not agreeing with this man. No, not at all.
Things that in America would seem ridiculous. I mean, there are so many stories of like Germans getting their doors kicked in because they posted something on Facebook. I mean, that happens here too, obviously, and it's everywhere. Europe.
I will look up to that, but I don't believe that somebody is kicked in the door like in America that you posted something on Facebook. And that is totally lying and bullshit. And that's freedom of speech too.
Does not have free speech. It is that simple. There are thousands of speech criminals in European jails right now. So to be like, well, I mean, these politicians were just breaking the laws. Okay, well, I'm sure lots of other politicians are, but for some reason we never hear about them, do we? It's very, very clear that there is a fear that there is something coming in Europe, a right-wing populist revolution that is going to completely upend the apple cart and destroy the left liberal hegemonic consensus that the bureaucrats like to operate under. This is not freedom. This therefore becomes a kind of administrative tyranny.
It's already there. The extreme right. It's already there, my friend.
And for some reason, the state, in all the European states, seems to think that it's their job to police the thoughts of their own citizens. And this is the position we're in. Yeah, no, Europe doesn't even have an absolutist attachment to free speech. It doesn't have any attachment to free speech. You may say what it is permissible for you to say. And in drawing such narrow boundaries, the administrative universalist project of the European Union, their commitment to this ideal liberal end of history state, will maintain itself. And if that detaches from reality and becomes more and more difficult to maintain in the face of, I don't know, rampant gangs of illegal immigrants or whatever it is.
Oh, now he's talking about the illegal immigrants. Oh boy, he's clinging on threats. It sounds like J.D. Vance. No. The freedom of speech. Okay, we have it. And like I said, I think I said it once time before. When you don't hurt somebody else's feelings, if you don't infringe the rights of another human being, then there's nothing wrong. You can say and do and express yourself either in movies, on the website, on social media, in paintings, whatever you want. You can express your feelings. You can express what you think, as long as you don't do two things. That's putting up to violence and hurting somebody else's feelings or infringe somebody else's. Yeah, that's are the two restraints that there is on the freedom of expression. And that's it. No more, no less.
Well, then we will just crack down all the harder, won't we? That's the European way to deal with these things. So the next one, well, the thing about Europe is that it's facing a demographic crisis. Yeah, that's so obviously true.
He's commenting on a piece that he's already. Yeah, if you already know what is right or wrong, you pick up a.
That's so obviously. Look at Italy. Look at Spain. Look at Portugal. Look at Greece. Look at, for some reason, the south of Italy's demographics are the south of Europe's demographics are falling off a complete cliff. Right. It is wild that you think this could be in some way used to sneer. Well,
the demographics of what? Demographics of childbirth? Demographics of unemployment? Demographics of which demographics is he talking about? You can say, I agree. Yeah, I agree too. Yeah. There are a lot of unemployment in the southern Europe. I agree. But that is not what it's saying. It's facing a demographic crisis of what? I don't know.
They just think that we have demographic issues. No, you absolutely do have demographic issues. And this is a massive problem with a very, very aged population. And in the south of Europe, the population is quite long lived anyway. So
it's about the age. But that's not what is in this article. It's not talking about age. That's what he make of it. Is age a problem? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But in the southern countries, southern Europe countries, there is a higher age, but there's also a higher unemployment. So, yeah.
You better think about it, because in 20 or 30 years' time, when the population of Italy literally halves, what's going to happen when it comes to pensions? What's going to happen when it comes to benefits, let alone state defense or state tax revenues generally? Like any of the things that you think belong to the post-World War 20th century consensus on what the state ought to provide will become very, very difficult to provide if there aren't simply the people available to provide them.
Yeah. Those demographics, I don't want to know it, but I'm sure that this is all about it. Yeah, about if he's talking about new people going through it to Italy, and yeah, if you want to go to Italy, it's a lot of commotion right here from outside Europe as from inside Europe. You can buy a house for €1 in Italy. So if you're planning to come to Italy, and that's not because of the demographics, but of the age, but it's simply there were too many houses. And so you can buy a house, only take in mind that if you buy that house, you need to bring a lot of money extra to make the house actually livable. So, but back to the demographics of age, yeah. But he's talking about illegal immigrants. So maybe by that time, there will be a greater American, a greater European community because we have a lot of immigrants, and maybe those immigrants going to work in Italy and going to live in Italy. But I don't think that's that harsh as that it's presented right here by him. Not even in the piece, by him. Half.
This is a completely salient critique, and they are just sarcastically brushing it away as something just a thuggish, ignorant American would say. No, these are real problems that Europe really has to face up to. The next thing, the thing about Europe is its economy is permanently stuck in the doldrums, a global cautionary tale. Yes, high tax, high regulation, high wealth redistribution makes Europe a basket case and has been for decades now. But it's genuinely unimpressive in every respect. And so hard to understand why you would try and use European economy as a selling point for Europe in this. But anyway, they say huddled masses. Have you considered Europe? Yeah, they have. And they were let in by European leaders. So Europe is overrun with millions and millions of illegal aliens that have just been allowed into the country, regardless. And that's.
Oh, there we have the extreme right for Britain.
Not
No,
to consider
a Brexit and an extreme right. Yeah. He's showing his true face, and he's allowed to. He's allowed to. It's freedom of speech, freedom of expression. He has his thoughts, but I do not agree with him. Not at all.
the legal ones. Millions of legal migrants who have been let into Europe who are helping weigh it down economically, socially, and demographically. This doesn't replace Europeans, does it? It just brings new people in who have different ways of life and different ways of thinking about things and changes it into something else. So anyway, they say the thing about Europe, it is naive. The only it is naive. The only global trading bloc attached to moral norms. It insists on complying with the edicts of the World Trade Organization, say, or doing its own part to cut carbon emissions. So you can see how now they're saying, okay, listen, we might have all these problems, right? We might have all these problems, but at least we're better than you. It's like, oh well, big deal.
What? I didn't read that at least we are better than you. That's his words. It's not in the article. It's not my words.
Saying that we're better than you, well, according to who? According to what standard? According to a long-lived civilization of prosperity?
According to what you just said 30 seconds ago. It's not a part of the article.
Not really. But according to some abstract liberal norms, we comply with the edicts of the World Trade Organization. I don't care. I don't care. We're doing our part to cut down carbon emissions. Okay, speak to China. Speak to India. Are they? No. It is not a place that demands allies come crawling to it, begging for favors on tariffs. Okay, great, but you're still a dying continent. Now what? It's still not a good place to be. The thing about Europe is it's like an open-air museum, yesterday's continent. Is its model even sustainable? Absolutely not. This is why you're freaking out when the Americans are like, look, we're not going to protect Europe from Russia. How about that? And that's it. Like everyone is suddenly running around like their hair is on fire. A good question, one that presupposes the European model is worth defending. That's true. But the point being is that the Europeans are living in luxury that other people have secured, that is underwritten.
And also, you, sir, are living in the luxury of the European Union no longer, but you're living in Europe in your luxury. And that's because of others, not of you, sir. So,
by the power of other people, and complaining that you're not being treated like a favored, pampered pet is really a bit of the problem, right? This level of entitlement, the people living in Europe now didn't bring this state of affairs into being. They merely inherited it. And so they think they are entitled to it. And when someone comes along and says, hey, man, you're going to have to pull your weight, they react like spoiled children. How can you suggest I need to pull my own weight? How dare you, sir? They say,
how dare you, sir? How dare you, sir?
hey, it's a place blessed with walkable cities. It's not blessed. It's not blessed. This stuff didn't just fall from heaven, right? Blessed with walkable cities, long life expectancies, and vaccinated kids who do not need to be trained to dodge school shooters. Bro, how many children have been stabbed to death in the past decade, right?
Decade. If you're now comparing it to the US, then I think that what children are stopped to death in a decade is something that happens in the US in a year by shooting. So,
come on, right? Charlemagne's realm is a place of many flaws, lots of them enduring, but in its own plodding way, Europeans have created a place where they are guaranteed rights to what others yearn for: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
yeah, but that's America. Yeah. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the Constitution of the United States.
Assuming that some boat migrant doesn't stab you, right? Assuming you don't say something, the government's like, no, actually, that's a political opinion that's completely verboten. And the pursuit of happiness is something nobody can take away from you anyway, because that's literally what you're doing. So this is not in any way a persuasive, sarcastic argument for why Europe is better than America. Actually, the Americans, whether you like it or not, they do still have their constitutional rights. And that means they do still have many more securities than the average European. And the thing is, we know this by revealed preference. So how many Europeans migrate to the United States? Well, the answer is 4.7 million, roughly. Currently, European immigrants in the United States are 4.7 million. And you would think, okay, well, but if Europe is truly the land of the free, surely millions of Americans are moving to Europe. And the answer is no, not absolutely not. As far as we can tell, the Americans don't keep great statistics on this, but something like 1.16 million Americans live in Europe. Why is it that 4 times more Europeans choose to live in America than Americans in Europe? Well, it's because this massive cope session that Europe's truly the land of free. No, it's not, and it never has been. Right? It's always been a land of I don't want to say authoritarian. It's not quite the right phrase. It's always been a land of overbearing government. Right? It's always been like this. And the only place where in Europe, in the European continent, that for a brief period of time wasn't a land of overbearing government was England and Switzerland. Switzerland, not a member of the European Union, incidentally, not bound by its regulations, not bound by its laws. Switzerland and England, both places that are not part of the EU. And England has long since given up any concerns for things like freedom or liberty or prosperity. So no, this is an absolute joke. An absolute joke and a total cope. And I realize that, again, this is meant to be a satirical article, but they do have the point of satire is to make a political point about something, and the point they're trying to make is simply not true.
Okay, I'll let him finish because it's the end of the video. Oh boy, do I have something to say about it? Well, why do Americans do not come to Europe, and there are more people going to America instead of Americans coming to Europe? My prediction is that a lot of Europeans like what is happening in the United States as being the land of opportunity. They love the culture, they love something about it. But for Americans not coming to Europe, by my opinion, is that the Americans are kept inside of, we are the land of the free, We are the people. Our nation is the great nation, and we tell it every day to salute the flag and do grab our guns and put it up, and then okay, if I'm sick, yeah, then I'm sick for a day, but I go to work because I need the money to pay my rent. Because if I don't pay my rent and I don't pay my car rent, I can't get money. And so I think that if Americans, like most of the Americans do, access the knowledge and the things that are available are on YouTube by watching my channel or watching somebody else's channel about how living is in Europe, you see that Americans leave. And I think that's the greatest problem that the United States wants to prevent. Because if people leaving the United States because they are not happy with the tax rate, they're not happy with the healthcare system, they're not happy with the labor laws, they're not happy with the budget that's given on the U.S. military, so the general quality of life is so bad that they think I'm going off to Europe, especially now, with the pension plans in troubles by our Doge, etc. It's about the lack of information that the Americans don't come over to Europe. Because I think if they really have the good view about how it was living in Europe, and we see plenty of YouTube film videos about how people do not even know how it is in Europe. So I'm here. I'm a Dutch guy. I'm open and honest. I'm very direct. That's a part of my being as a Dutchman. So let me know. What do you think? Do you want to know? Or do you want to come to Europe? Or do you think, well, not in a million years I want to go to Europe? So leave it in the comment and I will react to it. And if you like the video, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.